Welcome into another episode of 3 Up, 3 Down. I am your host, Rob Wong, and boy, oh boy, what a weekend for the Blue Jays in Seattle in the most negative way possible. I remember doing an episode a few weeks ago talking about how the Blue Jays had hit rock bottom. Well, I think we're back to that, where the Blue Jays have hit rock bottom yet again, at least as far as the offense goes. Scoreless in Seattle, the title of this podcast, is about the biggest layup that you could possibly get for this Blue Jays team and where they are at on the offensive side of the ball. Getting just 2 runs over a 3-game series against Seattle is an incredibly tough look. I know that they face some really good pitchers in this series. Logan Gilbert had some of his best stuff that we have seen all season long. They, of course, had to face Emerson Hancock, who is a pretty tough righty in his own right in the series finale, and he held the Blue Jays off the scoreboard. But overall, just, wow, what a rough go for this offense over the last couple of weeks. And you look at last year, I actually tweeted this during the game, that at this point last year, the Blue Jays were 6th in all of MLB in expected weighted on base. The quality of contact was really good. They were doing a ton of great things offensively, at least under the hood, to show that they were a good offense. Right now, they are dead last in all of Major League Baseball when it comes to expected weighted on base. So the quality of contact this year just has not been particularly good. They are at 300 on the season as far as the xWOBA. When it comes to the WRC plus, the actual results, they are currently sitting in 23rd overall in Major League Baseball. So not sure really what to say at this point. The Blue Jays offense just has not been able to get it going. Hard to believe that a couple of weeks ago, the Blue Jays were sitting in that 3rd wildcard spot. It started to look like they were ready to turn things around and go on a bit of a run here, especially with some of the teams they were set to face that were under 500 or not particularly threatening, and they have just vomited all over themselves when it comes to this stretch here heading into the All-Star break. It's not over yet when it comes to some of the winnable games they have. They are, of course, set to start a series in San Francisco against the Giants, who are absolutely horrendous, but they've got some pretty good pitching going in this series. Landon Roop, pretty solid right-hander, goes in the series opener. Then in the series finale, they'll face off against Logan Webb, who is another strong righty. So not going to be easy, and we know how cavernous that ballpark is in San Francisco. So it's not going to be easy to score runs, just like we saw in Seattle against the Mariners. But everybody in this lineup seems to be struggling at the moment. Nathan Lucas, who came back from his vertigo and looked like Ted Williams at times over the last couple of weeks, he has fallen off. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., of course, has shown some signs, had a nice ringing double in the series finale against the Mariners, but overall just hasn't been able to get it going. We'll talk more about Vladdy coming up in a moment when we get into the All-Star selections, but Yohendrick Pinango, since coming up, has gone cold. Sean Keyes had a nice home run a couple of series ago, but another guy who not expecting too much because he is a rookie, but was doing really well down in AAA, and you thought he could add a jolt to this lineup. Hasn't really been the case yet so far in his limited at-bats. The catching also is where it really stands out. Alejandro Kirk coming back had a nice start against the Yankees, but pretty much since then hasn't been able to get it going. And also Brandon Valenzuela, who everybody wanted to keep up with the Blue Jays, and rightfully so. I think that was the right move as the Blue Jays moved on from Tyler Heineman. Well, ever since Alejandro Kirk got back, who knows how much of a correlation it is there, but Valenzuela has gone cold as far as his bat. So that catching duo, that catching tandem that you felt really confident about as far as the offense goes, and you thought, man, both of these guys swinging it for the Blue Jays, that's going to be huge for the offense. Well, hasn't been the case. Both guys have really struggled basically since Alejandro Kirk got back. So up and down the lineup, it is just a bunch of guys that have gone cold. Nobody seems to be able to get anything going. The sequencing is off. The Blue Jays will get a couple of guys on, and then somebody grounds into a double play, or it's a fly out and then a strikeout and then a ground out to end the inning. It's just all bad. There's no other way to put it right now when it comes to the offense. And looking at where the record is right now, 42-48. I keep banging this drum that they're still in it. They are mathematically, when you look at the wild card race. Some of the other teams have started to play a little bit better. The Astros have won 2 in a row. They're 6-4 in their last 10. The Twins continue to somehow stay in this race as well. They're 6-4 in their last 10. Both of those teams within 2 games of the third wild card spot. And the Blue Jays are 3 back. So I know everyone wants to cancel the season and say that it's over, but we're still just under a month until the trade deadline. We'll see where things go with this Blue Jays team. And if they're at this point where they're 3 games back, maybe there's some minor additions that the front office is going to add. I can't see them going in a full-out buy mode like we've seen in years past, where the Blue Jays were legitimately in the mix for a playoff spot or for the division title. This year might be a modest buy if they're 3 games back with 2 months to go, but could definitely go the other way as well with the way things are going right now, where the Blue Jays, maybe they fall to 5 games back and they've got 4 or 5 teams to jump over. And at that point, you're in a pickle here. You're in a tough spot where it seems more likely to make sense to sell. And yesterday, watching that game got me thinking about the future of this team and specifically next year. We know a bunch of guys are in the final year of their contract. A ton of money is coming off the books. The pitching is in a better spot than the offense, I would say. You've got Trey Savage, you've got Dylan Cease, you are most likely to have Cody Ponce coming back next year, of course, off his ACL tear. Spencer Miles has been a great story, so you feel pretty good about 3-4 guys there. Maybe Miles converts to a starting pitcher, and you've got another hole filled when it comes to the rotation. But the offense, as much as it's struggling right now, you look at next season when George Springer is most likely moving on. Dalton Varsho, I'm going to guess, is probably moving on. Is probably going to get a pretty nice deal from someone as a free agent this coming off season. So at that point, you're left with a hole in center field. You're left with a hole at DH and a guy who's had a really remarkable career and has had some up and downs, of course, the last couple of years, and up in 2025, but downs in 2024 and 2026 in George Springer. But those are 2 really key offensive pieces. So what are you left with here? A bunch of rookies, a guy in Addison Barger who's been hurt all year, and I think, you're really trying to figure out what he is at this point, because he's only had the one season in 2025 where he looked like a legitimate above average MLB hitter, but we haven't seen him this year very much. So hard to know what his trajectory is going to be. So you're left with Alejandro Kirk. You're left with Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Kazuma Okamoto. That is sort of your core when it comes to the offense. If you want to throw Barger in there, fine. But I'm not expecting much out of Andres Jimenez moving forward. Ernie Clement, as great as he is, he's not a guy that's going to be above an 800 OPS, most likely. And then you've got Hendrik Pinango and Sean Keys and some of these younger guys. Maybe an RJ Schreck is banging on the door next season. Anthony Santander, who we might actually see this year coming up in the next few months. There's another guy. Maybe he returns and becomes a factor, but you get my point. There's a lot of question marks here when it comes to the offense moving into next season. I was taking a look at some of the free agents that are available. Trent Grisham of the Yankees. Could that guy be of interest? Can lead off, can draw a walk, which is something that these Blue Jays do not do. He's got some pop as well. Plays an okay center field, probably more of a corner outfielder at this point. Seiya Suzuki, I know, is a guy that a lot of people have been banging the drum for, but he's going to be like 32. Do you want to be throwing big money at a guy at that stage of his career? It's going to be tough, like looking at this team heading into next season to see what moves they can make to bolster this offense, because it's pretty clear they need to really look at that side of the ball and figure something out. They cannot continue to go forward with this sort of window that they are going with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and with Dylan Cease, Trey Savage, all of these guys in tow. You cannot continue with this offense that is this putrid. You need to figure that thing out, but we'll see. There's still time. I'm not completely writing off the season yet, even though some people are. But we are in a perilous state right now. And if the Blue Jays have a rough series here in San Francisco and a rough series in San Diego, there's going to be some tough questions being asked, I think, in the Blue Jays front office as to where they go when it comes to the trade deadline. So the offense is one thing. the pitching is now a focus yet again, because we saw on Saturday Shane Bieber get absolutely lit up by the Mariners offense, and it's been a bit of a mixed bag for Shane Bieber since coming back. He had a really rough start in his first outing. Then he was able to turn it around in his second outing and looked a lot better against the Texas Rangers. But then on Saturday, giving up 7 runs, 2 home runs, over 4 innings against the Mariners, just did not look good. No other way to sugarcoat it. He was absolutely dreadful, and now has an ERA of 9 in his 3 starts. The most concerning part is the quality of contact he is allowing right now. He is giving up a 16% barrel rate, which is absolutely terrible. Hard hit rate of 54%. Guys are just smoking the ball off Shane Bieber right now, and it's concerning, because if the Blue Jays do want to make a run at this, want to make a run at the third wild card, they're going to need him to be at least serviceable, and not what he is right now, where you just have no idea what's going to come out of his arm any given day when he's on the mound. And it's too bad, because I think we go back to the offseason where he picked up his player option and everybody thought, man, he just wants to return because he loves the Blue Jays and he was so happy to be here. And it turns out, he may have been a bit banged up after that World Series. I mean, we do know that now. He was banged up after the World Series, and that's why the late start. And he's pitching now later into the season. But yeah, there's question marks about what you're going to get from Shane Bieber moving forward here as a member of the Toronto Blue Jays. Would I still have made that trade? Yeah, absolutely. And interestingly enough, I was going to say funny enough, but it's not funny. We saw the news over the weekend. Cal Steven, the prospect that the Blue Jays gave up for Shane Bieber in that trade with Cleveland, he's set to undergo Tommy John surgery. So right now, that trade not looking great for either team. The Blue Jays have gotten way more out of it, of course, with the way Shane Bieber pitched last year, helping them get into the playoffs and go on a postseason run. But right now, that deal is kind of murky for both teams when they look at where things stand moving forward. But with the struggles of Max Scherzer and the injuries of some of the other guys in the rotation, the Blue Jays desperately need some innings and need some help for their bullpen to not continue to be overworked, and Shane Bieber has to be a part of that. And it was a decent run for some of the starters recently. Kevin Gausman had a nice outing. Dylan Cease was phenomenal on Friday in Seattle. But beyond that, the Blue Jays need to get more out of this starting rotation right now, especially with the way the offense is going. And that's tough on the pitching. That's tough on the rotation and the bullpen to have to try to limit every team to seemingly 1 or 2 runs in order for the team to win a game. That's not sustainable. The Blue Jays offense has to do their part at some point to get things going. All right, finally, the All-Star selections are in, and we'll start with Vladimir Guerrero Jr., who was voted to start at first base for the American League. We got into it last podcast, or one of the most recent podcasts, about people losing their minds over a guy who is struggling as much as Vladdy is and voting him into the All-Star game. We don't need to get into that anymore because he's not going to go. He told Sportsnet and told the media there in Seattle that he appreciated getting voted in, but he's going to take the time off to rest up. He's been dealing with a lower back injury for over a month now, I guess, or close to a month, and I don't think this should surprise anyone with the way he has been hitting this season. And I know people will think, well, if he's so hurt, like, why is he playing right now? And I think that's a valid question. I think that's fair. We don't know the extent of this back injury. And when you hear back, I think he even said it's closer to his oblique, which is, boy, that's not good. That is not a part of the body you want to be hurting if you're swinging as fast as Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is. But I think there's a difference between hurt and injured. And he's clearly hurt, but he's not injured to the point where he can't swing a bat or he can't get out there. But this injury seems to be hampering him, and he's going to take some time off in about a week or so to try to rest up. And hopefully he can heal up enough to start to look like the old Vladimir Guerrero Jr. that we all know and love. And as I said, there were some signs. We saw a couple of good ABs in Seattle, had that big double off Emerson Hancock in the series finale. drew some walks, but also had some really brutal strikeouts and some non-competitive at-bats. So it continues to be sort of one step forward, two steps back at times for Vladdy. But I would say the ABs are looking better now than they were just a couple of weeks ago. So maybe he just does need this rest to get closer to 100%. I doubt he's going to be 100% for the rest of the season. When you're dealing with something like that's been nagging, it would be difficult, I would say, at this point of the season to feel 100%. But good for Vladdy to recognize that he needs to take the time off and not go to the All-Star game despite being voted in as a starter. The other All-Stars, of course, Ernie Clement, who won the voting and will start at second base, but Louis Varland and Dylan Cease, first-time All-Stars for the Blue Jays. And Varland, of course, I mean, what else can be said? The guy's had an incredible season, deserves to be there, might even get the shot to close the game if it gets to that point. And with John Schneider being the manager, of course, Dylan Cease, I found it to be crazy that this is his first ever All-Star game appearance, considering he was a Cy Young runner-up a few years ago with the White Sox, had a fourth-place Cy Young finish as well. And this is his first Midsummer Classic. I think they explained it on the Sportsnet broadcast. Dan Schulman did that the year he finished runner-up in Cy Young, he had a phenomenal second half, which was a big reason why. And maybe the first half, while he was really good, he didn't end up going because other teams needed representatives. And that's why Dylan Cease didn't go that year. But a well-deserved All-Star nod this year for Dylan Cease, who could potentially start. John Schneider is the manager. I wonder how the politicking is going to work there. A lot of it has to do with start days, of course, and where guys line up when it comes to their starts. But I think if Dylan Cease is available, I think you can make the case that he should be the guy. Cam Schlittler, of course, another one that's going to be in that conversation, but it'd be tough, I think, if you're John Schneider to go with a New York Yankee to start an All-Star game over your own guy. I think if you ask Cam Schlittler, he'd probably want to start, but he'd probably understand as well when John Schneider is the manager. That's how things go. And at the end of the day, yeah, it's the All-Star game. Like, it's a cool moment to be able to say you started in an All-Star game, but I think a lot of these guys that are first-timers just happy to be there and just happy to get this opportunity. So we'll see how that goes for Dylan Cease, John Schneider, Louis Varland, Ernie Clement headed off to the All-Star game to represent the Blue Jays. All right, that does it for another episode of 3 Up, 3 Down. You can follow me on Twitter at RobWong34. You can follow the show at 3_up_3_DWN. As always, give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Let me know your biggest takeaway from today's episode. Make sure to follow the pod, share the pod on Apple Podcasts and Spotify as well. Thanks again for tuning in. I'm Rob Wong. You've been listening to 3 Up, 3 Down. We'll talk to you again on Thursday.